Welcome to Public Affairs. We're going to be speaking today about a suggested agenda for the Illinois GOP. Mainly these days, we're taping the show on March 18, 2022. Big news here. We're talking in Illinois, we're talking about the governor's race. Things are heating up. We're approaching the last 100 days for the GOP gubernatorial primary, which is on June 28, 2022. And folks, the big news is we had some big endorsements this week. We had Jeannie Ives, maybe that was last week, coming out for Senator Darren Bailey for governor of the state of Illinois. We had Dan Proft doing that this week. Dan Proft, well-known radio host, Morning Drive, 5 to 9, WIND radio, 560 AM radio, The Answer. So two of the leading conservatives for the last decade, Jeannie Ives and Dan Proft, have come out for Senator Darren Bailey for governor of the state of Illinois. Just a quick review, if you haven't been following this, there are 5 candidates. 5 candidates have now filed. There might be others, but those are the folks who've got campaigns and are ready to go, and sort of the major candidates. Aurora Mayor Richard Irvin, Senator Darren Bailey, venture capitalist Jesse Sullivan, Ditch Digger CEO Gary Rabine, ex-senator, former Senator Paul Schimpf. Those are the 5. We'll be talking about them. We'll be talking mainly about the issues and giving a little hint. Here's my view, Jeff Berkowitz, Public Affairs, my view as to what the agenda should be for the Illinois GOP, especially for these folks running for governor. And it doesn't, look, it's crime, stupid. Remember when Bill Clinton said it's the economy, stupid, back in the 90s? Well, in 2022, if you're running for governor, heck, if you're doing almost anything throughout the country in Illinois in politics, it's crime, stupid. That's what's on people's minds. They don't want to get shot. They don't want to get killed. They don't want to get carjacked. They don't want crime, street crime. It's on their mind. So, let's address it. Let's sort of review where we are in Chicago and Illinois on crime. And we're going to start out with slide 1. A lot of verbiage there, but look, the main thing is Chicago is becoming the murder capital of the country. They just reached a 25-year high, Chicago did, in murders. Granular homicide rate and analyses reveal alarming truths. This comes from Wirepoint's, a recent slide, a recent post by Matt Rosenberg made use of this. And we know there are a lot of numbers there, but the main thing here in Chicago, last 2 years, 2020 and 2021, 800 homicides or so each of those years. Some people say, hey, it's COVID. I don't think so. COVID may be a factor. And look, we had the big picture. Cook County has 1,000 homicides. I mean, it's just got, crime is skyrocketing out of control. The city's 1,836 carjackings in 2021 were at 200% higher than in 2019. Expressway shootings in Cook County more than quintupled from 2015 to 2021. From quintupled from 51 in 2019 to 273 in 2021. That's like the governor's baby. The governor should be involved. Governor Pritzker right now, our current governor, you may say, what does he have to do with it? He has the Illinois State Police. The highway shootings in Chicago, that's the intersection of the Illinois State Police, the Chicago Police, Cook County. I mean, everything's coming together. And the short of it, folks, crime is out of control. Why? Well, in my view, my humble view, especially in Cook County. But we're talking, look, if you're watching this, we're talking a gubernatorial race, so we're talking 102 counties. Chicago and Cook County may have have disproportionate influence on the race, because Cook County has 5 million of Illinois' 13 million or so population, and Chicago has population of 2.7 million. So of course we want to talk about crime in these other counties. We have inner cities other than Chicago. We have Decatur too. Chicago leads in big city homicides when we compare it relative to Los Angeles and relative to New York. See, if you look at that chart, look at the right side. That's basically the last 20 years, 2000 to 2020. And you can see crime came down all over in these three cities, secular trend downward in the 90s. But in Chicago, it's been going up. And the other places, it was continuing to go down. So Chicago is an outlier. Look where it is now. Look at the number of homicides relative to Los Angeles and New York. Why? Why is Chicago like that? Because sometimes they try to say, oh, well, crime is going up all over. Well, maybe, but it's been high and high for a long time. Yes, we had declines in homicides in Chicago 2016, 2017, 18, and 19. And 2020 and 2021, it just boomed up in Chicago. It was just way up, okay? But the problem has been brewing and is now going on for a long time. We have policies coming out dealing with crime. Our state's attorney Kim Foxx, seems to think she's a public defender more than she's a prosecutor. So she doesn't seem to favor prosecution. Yes, she does some, but not as much as her predecessors. And eventually the word gets out. If you don't prosecute for murder, if you just say there's insufficient evidence, people will kill at will. That sounds terrible, but there are people who will do that. So prosecution is down, and murders are up, and other violent crimes are up, and carjackings are up, and rapes are up. I mean, people are going to say, oh, this period, that's what's going on, violent crime. And we got a chief judge, Tim Evans, who seems to think dangerous criminals cannot be detained. And he sets the tone for the judges in the Circuit Court of Cook County. There may be some fellow judges around the state of Illinois, similar view. If you are a dangerous repeat offender, there is a basis in the law for not granting bail, and certainly not easy bail, and not having a policy no cash bail, because you're a danger to the community. And Tim Evans doesn't seem to get that. And Toni Preckwinkle, who's sort of the Cook County Board president overseeing this, she put Kim Foxx there. Yes, Kim Foxx was elected, but Toni Preckwinkle is a tremendously powerful politician in Cook County. She is chairman of the Cook County Democratic Party. She has tremendous influence on judges, making somebody a judge, stopping them from being judge, removing them, helping in losing on retention. So it's what I would call the axis of evil. You got Fox, you got Chief Judge Tim Evans, and you got a Toni Preckwinkle. And until that mentality changes, which they all seem to have, treating criminals as victims, until that changes to start treating criminals as criminals, we're going to have problems, okay? So crime, and we've looked at the first two slides, and I think we've got those are research tools that many of the governor candidates that we mentioned before can be using in this race. Richard Irvin, Darren Bailey, Jesse Sullivan, Gary Rabine, Paul Schimpf. They should be reading this stuff and referring to it and doing what I'm doing. That's just my view. They want to come on my show. We've had them all on except for Mayor Richard Irvin, and we hope to have him on soon. But look, they can tell me whatever they want. They can tell the public whatever they want. But I think they ought to be focusing on crime and specific solutions. Don't just come out with plans, put them somewhere on their website, and just never use it. Repetition. Because laws may be set by the legislature. The police may be the enforcers. Your various state's attorneys are the enforcers on straight crime. You want to change those policies? If you're the governor, when you can't change who's in office, you better use your bully pulpit to make sure that these folks hear what you say and pressure them to prosecute and arrest and then detain and then try and convict and sentence these folks, and then they're in prison, and get the word out. That's your policy. That word is not reaching the public. Okay. So look, the other major is education. Looking now at the slide that says Illinois spends the 8th most per student. So when we look at this, when we look at that chart, those are the 50 states, those little bar graphs going across from the most expensive on the left, the least expensive on the right. You can see Illinois spending $16,600 per kid per year. This is 2019. This is excluding capital costs. People put this current figure closer to 21, 22,000, maybe more per kid per year in CPS. This is the average for Illinois. We're talking $16,600 per kid per year. Okay, that's a lot of money. That's the average. As we said, in Chicago, it's higher. Some areas it's less. That's the average. Indiana is at about 12,000. Just a little bit under. Florida is at a little bit under 10,000 per kid per year. And yet, we'll see as we start looking at performance, what's Chicago getting for that? Let's take a look at slide number 4, and you can see only about a quarter of all Chicago students score proficient or above on national testing. And the numbers are much lower for the minorities, which are the majority of the kids in the CPS, Chicago Public Schools. You know, these are fourth grade scores on math, and you can see Black fourth graders are scoring at grade level and reading. We got like 15%. On math, we got 16% at grade level. Those are the percentage of Blacks who are hitting those scores at grade level. And Hispanics are doing a little better. We look at that chart, we'll see that 25% are proficient in math in fourth grade at CPS for Hispanics, and whites it jumps up to 65%. Blacks on reading in fourth grade, 15% at grade level. Hispanics 21%, whites 56%. Those are not good scores. Those are terrible scores. And they're perhaps even worse in places like East St. Louis, in Decatur. So this is a major problem in the inner cities of Illinois. We're spending a lot and we're getting very poor results. People say, oh, we're graduating more. Well, that's great that you're graduating. 11th graders, the numbers are even worse. It gets worse. 11th graders at CPS who are Black are they're reading at 14% or so are reading at grade level. Maybe for Hispanics, it goes up to 25% in 11th grade. Whites be even higher. Those are not good scores. What are we doing? And you can look, got another chart here, another slide 5. This is fourth grade math, National Assessment of Educational Progress test scores. And you can see Indiana is spending less, and that yellow line means they're outperforming Illinois, which is the red line on the bottom. And so Indiana, Florida are doing much better, and Illinois is doing worse, even though we're spending way more. So we've had a history of governors coming in and making a pledge that they're going to increase spending. Why did do that? Why do they think that's a good thing? If we're one of the highest spending states in the country, one of the worst performers, especially at CPS, but especially in the inner city areas, but around the state we're lagging on average what other states are doing, and we're spending more. Why isn't that a key issue for governor candidates to be talking about? Because that bleeds directly into something we do hear a lot about, which is property taxes. You might say, well, why? What do property taxes have to do with education spending? The Illinoisans pay the nation's second highest property taxes. So let's go leap ahead to the next slide, slide 7, and we'll see Illinoisans pay the nation's second highest property taxes. On the right, Nearly 2/3 of the Illinois property taxes pay for K through 12 education. So the little secret that the governor candidate should let out here, you can't just say, oh, elect me and I'll cut property taxes, because nobody will believe you. Why? Because other people have said that before and it hasn't happened. Governor Pritzker, he was saying that. Has he cut property taxes? Hell no. He hasn't even stopped them from increasing. And the point is, you don't want just a freeze on property taxes. If you have the second highest in the country, maybe you should be talking about cutting taxes. How do you cut property taxes? Well, if education is behind 2/3 of your property taxes, here's a little hint. If you don't cut education spending, not freeze it, cut it, you're not going to cut property taxes. So the question is, can we maintain or actually get better results than we're getting? Can we do that and actually spend less and lower your property taxes? And the answer, folks, is yes, you can. Remember that, Obama? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. So we can do that in Illinois. How? You might say, well, what is the key factor in our property taxes, education? What's the key factor in education spending? It's not buildings, folks. It's not, our athletic teams. It's our personnel. In some areas, 80% of your education spending is your personnel. Other schools, other things may be less, but that is a major chunk. And why are our personnel costs so high? In large part because our teachers are very highly paid, high pensions, high salaries. Why is that? We're looking now at a map of the United States and see, we're going to have to get people to change the colors, WirePoints. All of these slides coming from WirePoints. Thank you very much, WirePoints. But I'm thinking that we got red showing the 13 states in the United States that give the unions the power to strike. Here's a news item. The other 37 unions can't strike. It's illegal for teachers. Teachers unions can't strike in those other 37. But in Illinois, they can. All those red states. Those red states happen to be blue states, as we usually designate things politically. So we're going to have to get the folks at WirePoints to change the color scheme so we got the 13 states blue and not red. They're mostly Democratic states, okay? So, I think the candidates, we love our teachers, we love our schools, but we're going to have reform. That's the big word I haven't mentioned that I should have. My mistake. Because the first word coming out of your mouths, if you're running for governor of the state of Illinois, reform, 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 reform. Got it? Reform. Reform what? Reform our tax system. I don't mean just like a fancy thing. Cut the damn taxes. Cut the property taxes. Don't come out and say, well, freeze. Freeze doesn't do you any good if you're the second highest. Okay, if you're the 8th highest in spending on education, freeze doesn't do any good. You got to cut the monopoly market power of teachers' unions. We love our teachers, perhaps, but we don't love our teachers' unions. Why? Because they are responsible for paying teachers more than we can going forward. It's not sustainable. We're paying them high market power teaching salaries. We're paying them basically rates. So we're going ahead and we're looking now at one of the major reasons that our costs are so high for the teachers. It's pensions and high salaries. So that chart, again from WirePoints, pension benefit data for Illinois state retirees. And you can see the numbers. I'm going to get a little help so I can see them better too. The average salary when the teachers are ready to retire at 59, their average salary around the whole state of Illinois, we're not talking Chicago, this is average. If the average is 108,000, there are teachers earning 120, 130, 140, and some more junior teachers may be earning 70,000 and so forth. That's a spread. But remember, this is an 8-month-a-year profession. How many people who are out there watching the show who are not involved as a teacher get to work 8 months a year? I mean, okay, maybe it's 9 months, it's 8 or 9 months, because they got that big 3-month vacation. You got 2 weeks for Christmas, you got a week for Easter. How many of you folks get all of those weeks and weeks and weeks off? Really? So final average salary when at 59, 108,000 for teachers. The annual pension that they're going to be starting at is close to 80,000, and it goes up from there. We got automatic COLAs for these folks at 3% a year. Retirement age 59. They're looking at a payout for their pensions 2.6 million. Any of you folks got a 2.6 million payout coming up? University workers. This includes faculty, but also clerical, which drives the salaries down. The final average salary, faculty, many could be higher, 120, 140, 150,000. Some of the clerical workers less, maybe 60, 70,000, 50,000. Average 92,000. Current annual pension, 70K. That's what they're starting at 59, but that's going to escalate dramatically over their lifetime, which is the expected lifetime 20 or 30 years. 20 or 30 years. Let me just go back, Terry. Go back to that slide. We're not quite done with it. You're getting ahead of the guest, the host. The state workers, 85,000 for a final average salary. Pensions, these state workers, they're eligible and they pay, but also get Social Security. So they start with a state worker 54,000 a year. Social Security may be 18, 20,000. They may be up to 70,000 as well. So therein lies not just your education problem, but your high government costs. You have above average salaries for government workers on the state, on the local level, and you have above average pensions. Heck, most people don't even have pensions. If they do, they're defined contributions, but and many don't have it. Okay, but these folks all have defined benefit pensions, which have sort of been they're completely gone in the private sector. But not if you're a teacher, not if you're a state worker. You have a defined pension benefit thought to be a guarantee for life. Okay, you're not going to fool with it. Which comes to what do we do about this? Because if we look at the next slide, we see our total unfunded retirement debt, 530 billion. These are state pensions. These are local pensions around the state, including Chicago, including CPS, school districts, $530 billion in the hole. I don't see Governor Pritzker talk about this as much. He talks about, well, we've made a dent. Really? I'd like him to tell me how much less have we made the dent so that 530 billion has gone down. He talks about a buyout program, but I don't see a lot in terms of really how much that is saved this year. Maybe he'll want to come on and tell us that. So you're starting to see the picture here. If you're running for governor, if you're Mayor Richard Irvin, if you're Senator Darren Bailey, if you're venture capitalist Jesse Sullivan, Ditch Digger CEO Gary Rabine, ex-senator, former Senator Paul Schimpf, in my view, these are the issues. You should be talking about crime, education, how you're going to cut spending on education. Oh, didn't say, very important, the important reform in education, school choice. We need to get competition. Take a little sip of a beverage here. And we need to get control. Let's go back. We don't want to look at the pensions right now, Terry, because we need to. If you're dealing with those issues, we're not going to run through all the slides again. But remember, if you're running for governor, it's crime, stupid. They really have to hear about it. And yes, you got to check on your prosecutor if you folks are in a different county other than Cook. Do you have a prosecutor who's prosecuting? Do you have judges who believe in detaining dangerous criminals, repeat criminals? Do you have a county board president who's actually encouraging a crime enforcement problem, encouraging the mentality to treat criminals as criminals as opposed to treating them as victims? The victims are the people who are affected by crime. They're not the criminals. Make that distinction. Make sure, as a governor, you're exploiting that bully pulpit. And I was starting to say, make sure in education, you're talking about school choice, about charter schools, about voucher schools, about private schools, that people can take their $21,000 that's being spent per kid per year in CPS and go to the school of their choice. whether it's a charter school, whether it's a private uh, sectarian school or non-sectarian school, whatever. Just give competition a chance. That's the only way. That's the only way we'll get costs down, is to let the consumer say, I want to take my money that you folks are spending, city, state, and federal, and spend it at the school of my choice. When the money will follow the kids. If you take your kids and send them to another school, that money should go to that school. More on that, but everybody running for governor, really, Democrat, Republican, they should be talking choice and competition. And why? Because people want their damn property taxes cut, and they're not going to get cut until you cut the market power of teachers' unions. You're going to have to face this, folks. You say, oh, Jeff, I don't want to say that, Rob. Well, then I guess you're not serious about cutting property taxes, because until you cut education spending and improve quality by having competition. So cut spending, improve the quality, make sure kids can read at grade level, not like we're doing at CPS, especially the minorities, blacks and Hispanics. Until you do that, you're not hitting the issues that people are talking about that are important. And that's how you solve the pension problem, except you're going to have to amend the Constitution so that you can restructure these pensions and cut pension benefits. That's the only way. And we have an amendment coming up on the Constitution, Amendment 1. It goes in the reverse direction. It gives teachers unions more market power. It enshrines these things that are bad laws now, collective bargaining reform that we need. It will prevent that. More on that later. But now, you see, in some, have we sketched out an agenda for the Illinois GOP? You know, it's again, there are two roles here. This is an opinion show at the moment. That's what I'm doing today. Folks will be coming on as guests of Public Affairs. Well, then it's your opinion. That's what we're interested in. So when we've had Bailey and Sullivan and Rabine and Shimthon, it was their opinions, their views. We challenged them, but that's what we want to hear. And when Richard Irvin comes on, we want to hear his opinion. Okay. And of course, if you're running for state rep and you're running for state senator, I think this agenda applies. It may even apply if you're running for the U.S. Senate. At least on the federal level, there are certain issues. Yes, crime is an issue there too. There are other issues that are different. So this can be the GOP, the Illinois GOP agenda. I wonder who will want to adopt it. I wonder if the candidates for governor will. I wonder if the Senate, the Republican House leader, the Republican Senate leader, and if it's not this, what is? Because everybody should have an agenda, right? A good agenda, a positive agenda, not just the things that are wrong, but how you're going to fix and improve these big ticket items. You know, and you got that research. You have it. Look, we've got wire points. We're citing, those are facts and data, and that's science. That's in many cases economic science, finance science, but that's science. I've heard the governor say, Governor Pritzker, he wants science and data. Well, it's time for him to be taking a look at economics and finance and science and what people write who are professionals and what WirePoints is doing, because I think all of the candidates, Democrats and Republicans, can learn. And if they don't think that's right, you come on Public Affairs and you tell me why. Because we're all about encouraging debate. That's what science is. We didn't touch on COVID. We'll do that another time. We'll bring back unemployment. We'll just say right now, in closing, Illinois is a high unemployment. It has high unemployment rates relative to its surrounding neighbors. We'll touch on that more. We'll discuss that more when you come back next week and every week to watch Public Affairs.